Hey, today we have a status update on patrol spawns and when the developers plan on taking another look at the code. We'll also go over some new desync issues, talk about the Steam reviews and how they're currently still plummeting, and cover so much more in today's video. If you would like to support the channel, please tap the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications at any point in the video. Let's start with some news on patrol spawns. In the recent update, I've seen multiple chargers spawning on the field at difficulty level 6 or 7. The last time the devs updated the patrol spawns was in patch 01.000.400, which states right here, "We have toned down the amount of heavily armed enemies like Bile Titans chargers on higher difficulties and instead spawn more hordes of smaller enemies." The difference should be quite noticeable and the amount should be at least 30% less than before during bug breaches. We have also toned down slightly how many hulks that spawn for the Automatons. This patch right here was released on June 13th, which was 2 months ago. We now have a status update because the community manager Twinbeard has shared that the developers at Arrowhead are planning to review the spawn mechanics again, but this won't be until sometime in fall. So right here, he replied to a player on Reddit and wrote, "I asked a colleague about this before going on vacay. While spawn patrols or enemy presence overall, as I prefer to use, is really intricate thing where lots of parameters play a part, and that in many parts or in many ways it shouldn't be worse. The outcome of all the parameters factors make things feel worse or more importantly less fun, and that's what's important. No one cares if there are 3 chargers and 10 small enemy units or 5 or each. It's how the game feels to play that matters. I spoke with my colleagues about sentiments still being negative about a lot of things regarding enemy presence, and we discussed things like how the drop shifts and ragdolling probably had an effect on this as well, and he said that we, AH, would revisit spawns and patrols again soon, most likely this fall." Then towards the bottom, Twinbeard wrote, "We just need people to give back from their holiday and start busting some coding chops." So as you can see, the developers plan on taking a look at the patrol spawns sometime in fall. Now, the community manager states that no one cares if there are 3 chargers, and he's not entirely wrong, it's not that bad. However, I've seen more than just 3 chargers spawn on a planet. I actually wanted to know if it's just me, so I decided to check if anyone else has noticed the spawning acting a bit weird. There's a player on Reddit who actually encountered at least 6 to 7 chargers. So what I want to know is, have you experienced the charger spawn bug recently? If so, please share your story right now in the comments below. I'll be keeping an eye out for it. Alright, continuing on, within the same post, the community manager responded to another player that essentially is upset and said they're going to move on to a different game. And Twinbeard said that Helldivers 2 is a large ship to stir, talks a bit about how the team is still on holiday break, talks about poor communication, time restraints. So with that being said, here's his full response to the current situation, where he wrote, "Hello again, I've been away for 6 weeks, 5 of which should have been vacation, but most of the time was spent dealing with our son's newly discovered diabetes, unfortunately." Then Twinbeard continued on to say, "There are a lot of things you could say and write about this, but a lot boils down to that it takes time to swing a large ship around. The ship in this example being HD2, and it's increasingly more difficult and more time consuming when a large portion of the staff is on holiday. Regardless, it's clear that some things haven't been where we or the players would have liked them to be. Either they've been poorly communicated or were a poor outcome caused by time restraints. Either way, that of course very unfortunate. Arrowhead, as you might have read, just launched, as well as continued as some things are work in progress already since before. He planned to mitigate several of the worst issues, among which is specifically not balancing for data or balancing's sake, but rather to have more fun in playing, ragdolling, game performance, and other key areas where the sentiment is not where we want it to be at the moment. Hope you'll stick around, but there's nothing wrong with playing a game and revisiting it at a later date, especially if live service one that's being worked on continuously." First and foremost, I wish the best for Twinbeard and his family. That aside, I believe his response to the Helldivers 2 situation is actually great, as he acknowledges the mistakes made due to the poor communication, and of course that there were some sort of time restraints. On that note, there is supposed to be another update coming soon, as Shams recently mentioned that more patches are expected within the next 60 days. I think the first patch should definitely include some positive changes to weapons and address the crashing issues. Then they could build up the next patch while we're all having fun, you know? At least to me, that feels like the best approach, instead of releasing an update that might be considered mediocre. Alrighty, with all that information out of the way, we do have a new patch now, And as you can see for crash fixes, it says, fixed a crash when dropping into a game, joined by invite while previously hosting, fixed a crash that could or would occur after being kicked for being AFK, fixed a crash that could happen when dropping into a mission, fixed a crash that could occur if shutting down the game during boot. So as you can see, they have resolved quite a few issues when it comes down to crashing. Now they do have another patch note here for stratagem and weapons. So right here it says, fixed an issue where flamethrower particles would ignore enemies. The issue was when the enemies turned into a lower resolution version at some distance from the player, they stopped colliding with the fire particles. And last but not least, mines can now be shot and blown up while near a dangerous object. Now the best part here is for enemy fixes. Right here it says, reduce the explosion radius of tentacle stabbing ability and light rockets. Then they continued on to say, this should elevate the excessive ragdolling caused by the impaler and automaton enemies using light rockets. We are still working on improving the ragdoll behavior overall. And then last but not least for miscellaneous, it says, fixed an issue that could cause soft lock during a drop in after the host left. And that's pretty much it. So what I decided to do was test out the flamethrower to see if there were any significant changes, and to be quite honest guys, there really isn't much to talk about. I mean, it's still the same, to be quite honest. Speaking of an update, players currently on PC have been reporting numerous performance issues. Some of you in the chat mentioned that GameGuard, which is Helldivers 2's anti-cheat system, is causing these problems. In the past, the developers conducted a Q&A where they claimed that the anti-cheat did not degrade performance, at least not according to their testing. For instance, right here the devs wrote, will GameGuard reduce the performance of my PC? GameGuard is only active while the game is running, and after thousands of hours testing, we've not noticed any noteworthy degradations of performance on our developer and QA workstations. Now, the developer mentioned QA workstations, and as you guys know, the QA team does a terrible job on testing, or at least that's what it appears to be. Anyways, at the time, they claimed there were no performance issues. However, I've seen reports from some players experiencing FPS declines, or just CPU problems, or even errors. There's actually a player who was booted out of a game because the battery died on his Samsung earbud, which is just crazy. Also, the developers talked about how there was an exploit with samples on Helldivers 1, similar to what we just saw with the last major order where we had to collect a certain number of samples. Well, the developers responded to the most asked question, which is, why does a game like Helldivers 2 need an anti-cheat when it's a PvE game? The devs wrote this right here. When we released Helldivers 1 on PC, there was effectively no anti-cheat implemented. Additionally, Helldivers 1 uses a peer-to-peer networking model, and that means from a security perspective, each game client will blindly trust each other. Shortly after release, we noticed there was a cheat going around which granted 9,999 research samples. Unfortunately, any non-cheater in the same mission would also be granted 9,999 research samples. These non-cheating players now had their entire progression ruined through no fault of their own. We were able to deal with a lot of these early issues without using a third-party solution, but it took a lot of work and most of it was done reactively. Incidentally, Helldivers 2 also uses a peer-to-peer networking model, but this time around we're trying to be more proactive and make sure everyone can play the intended experience. Now, the reason I bring this up is because the anti-cheat is supposed to stop players from hacking the game, preventing exactly what happened in Helldivers 1. However, it seems that the anti-cheat didn't make much of a difference, considering players hacked Helldivers 2 recently by collecting a bunch of samples and completing the major order almost instantly. So, to be completely fair, I don't think the game needs an anti-cheat if it barely does its job. I get the idea to stop cheaters or to stop players from using exploits, but it's just not helpful overall. As you can see, there are players who can use custom skins, super speed, infinite stratagems, or even spawn down a bunch of samples like recently. Moving along, if you've recently logged on to Helldivers 2 and noticed that you've been sent back to the tutorial biome with 0 credits, requisition slips, and so on, don't worry, it's not a major issue, but it can be fixed. A support team member explained that it's due to desync issues. V-Vitamin wrote, in every case I've ever seen of this, it's been a temporary desync from servers because of a networking issue, and it solves itself after a while. I'd suggest restarting your internet, PC, Steam, and verifying game files, and if none of that work, Send in a support ticket, crying optional. So, as you can see here, if restarting your internet or verifying the files doesn't fix the issue, unfortunately your best option is to send in a support ticket. I know it sucks, but that's literally the best option, and you can try it out and see if it helps, or try the two solutions and see if that helps. Now let's talk about the reviews. As of recently, the Helldivers 2 Steam reviews continue to plummet, currently sitting at 43%. The reviews are still coming in with more negative reviews than positive ones. For example, as you can see, it's getting hit pretty hard, and I suspect it will get worse from here on out. That is until the next update arrives. For a lot of players, there are plenty of reasons to dislike the Escalation of Freedom patch. For me personally, I can deal with the nerfing, but the crashing and team killing is getting out of hand. In my last video, I talked about the group known as Chaos Divers, who are currently blamed for the griefing. Now, I was informed on my Discord by some of those members who claimed that there are others pretending to be Chaos Divers and pretty much causing all the griefing. Now, the other side of the coin is that there are just a lot of players who are upset, and you know, they're just trying to ruin the experience for newer players, because that's really what they're doing. On a completely different note, we're going to talk about the Helldivers 2 credits because it surprised me quite a lot. Towards the end, it shows the love and care that Arrowhead had for each other. Unfortunately, one of the UI designers had passed away while the game was in development. You can see right here at the end it says, "In love and memory, Elisa Nillen, August 1988, April 2020. We cherished the memories of her infectious laughter that could be heard echoing through the office, her unwavering optimism, and unflagging positivity. She was a bright spark during dark days, while sharing happily in the sunny ones. Her absence will forever be deeply felt." So yeah, honestly guys, it's a gut punch to read that because she was only 31 years old. She worked at Arrowhead as a UI designer. So rest in peace to her, and kudos to Arrowhead for including that tribute. You know, I thought this was quite interesting and just wanted to share it with those who weren't aware. On a lighter note, did you all know that the Railgun stratagem is still amazing? I've talked about this before, but it seems not many players want to try it out. With the Escalation of Freedom patch, the devs made gunship engines a lot weaker, or at least less durable. Just tap the engines twice with the Railgun and watch those gunships fall from the sky. You can also one-shot Hulks, rocket devastators, shielded devastators, and even basic enemies, but don't waste ammo on those. Use your main or sidearm instead. Now, if you're wondering what stratagems I like to use, I like switching between the supply backpack for ammo and health so that my railgun always has ammo, or the shield backpack, which is great for soaking up shots from either near to far. Now, I mainly use the railgun for gunships. If you're looking for an alternative, the heavy machine gun isn't a bad choice either. I'm honestly terrible with the machine gun, so it took me a few shots. However, for some of you, it might be easy pickings. Now, even though I missed a few times, it did take long for the gunship to blow up. So if you want to, you can use the heavy machine gun, but there are some other ways of taking out the gunships. You can use a commando or even the spear, but you know, with the spear, if there's too many gunships, you'll probably run out of ammo quickly. For support weapons, I would also recommend equipping the laser cannon. The ammo, it's practically infinite as long as you don't let it overheat. So we've talked about a lot in this video, but I would like to know your overall thoughts about everything that we've went through. If you have comments about a specific thing, make sure to let me know down below. And also, I would like to know, what is your favorite loadout? Let me know down below in the comments as well. And if you guys have not done so, make sure you give this video a like if you have enjoyed it. If not, then I guess feel free to give it a downvote, I guess. But yeah. Anyways, I appreciate all the support that you guys have been giving this channel as of late, and it truly means a lot to me. So with that being said, this is your Helldivers 2 news, and by the way, forgive me, my voice is a little bit raspy, or I'm losing it, so it is what it is. But anyways, we're gonna move on and talk about the top 3 comments from the previous video. If you guys would like to be featured in the next one, all you have to do is comment down below. The first comment is by Livacy Knight. I just uninstalled the game. I'm the strongest Chaos Diver. The second comment is by Nefertiti. The damage bug is known and will be fixed. Charge your leg armor by 200%, missile damage down by 75%. We fixed it. And last but not least, we have Fireworks that said, good thing we had to install the kernel level anti-cheat on our computers that doesn't catch people cheating. With that said, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you do subscribe and turn on notifications. And with that, see you guys in the next one.